Hey, Culture Family, I'm K.A. Will,
And I'm Gabby.
and we want to welcome you to another episode of Marriage Journey, where we talk about our unique experiences in this journey we call marriage. We all have a unique marriage and experience, and no two experiences are exactly alike, but we also have some
Parallels and similarities. So
yeah,
our hope is that our transparency and experience will help you in some way.
yeah, yeah. So, our last episode, we were talking about why do people call marriage hard? Or that saying, marriage is a lot of work. Why do people say that? Why do people say, oh, marriage is hard? And we got on to one of the leading causes, and just to review really quickly, we know that experts say and studies show that communication,
Right?
finances, and infidelity are the top three reasons why people get divorced and marriages don't work. And we added a fourth. That's just, we decided to add a fourth. This is out of our opinion. We're no experts, but the fourth one is selfishness, definitely. AKA being a jerk, AKA being too rigid, not being willing to be flexible. So selfishness is definitely another reason I think that people get divorced. So we talked about our personal struggle in the communication department, which happened last year during COVID when it started in 2020.
Yeah.
And we got to a rough place in our marriage. And we just feel humbled to be able to share, that part of our lives with you. It's not something that most people would do. We're definitely not proud of it. But we're glad that we can share it, share the lessons, share what worked for us. Not saying that it's necessarily going to work for you, but it'll give you ideas, hopefully get you going in the right direction with your spouse on how you can fix those challenges. And then my wife started talking about, just what she saw in her parents' household and how, because of our communication breakdown, how she thought we was heading toward that same road.
Right.
Is that right?
Yep. Sorry, Mommy and Papi. I'm just gonna put that out there. Say that first.
Right.
With all due respect.
Right.
What I saw. So I didn't see my parents as friends.
Okay.
At all. I didn't see them as lovers. Really?
Okay.
I pretty much saw them as roommates. So, we talked about how we were partners in parenting, but we lost our relationship with each other. But even in that, I really didn't see my parents as partners. I saw them as roommates and maybe partners in paying bills. Maybe that's what it is, a partner in paying bills. You do your job, bring your money. I do my job, I bring my money. Let's make sure the bills are paid, make sure the kids are good. And, my mom was working 2 jobs and had to take care of take care of the house and the kids. My dad worked. So I didn't see much room or place for relationship.
Gotcha.
So when we talked with our therapist last year, and she kind of showed us that we were missing a relationship between the two of us, and I was like, oh, we are doomed. I definitely thought we were doomed, and that's why I said I thought I lost my marriage, because I was like, well, it looks like, all right, you take care of Shiloh in the morning, I take care of Kalel, we'll get their food ready, I'll drop them off, you'll pick them up, or I'll pick them up and put them to bed, and that's all that is going to be between us.
Now, I want to stop you right there where you said you thought you were going to lose your marriage, or you thought we were doomed. Clarify that, because were you thinking that we were going to get divorced? Or what else? What were you thinking?
I thought we were doomed to continue that pattern continue that culture that I saw,
Hmm.
and then later maybe get divorced or something like that.
Okay, okay. So it wasn't necessarily you were thinking divorce was going to happen right then and there.
Right.
You were more thinking that the pattern we were on was not a good pattern.
Right. It was towards failure. Right.
And what about the relationship part of it?
What do you mean?
No, because when we were talking before, you were saying you saw it as not necessarily losing the marriage, but losing relationship.
That's exactly the path that we were headed to.
Okay.
Of
Right, right.
losing relationship.
No, I just wanted to be clear,
Yes.
you know, so everyone understands what we're talking about
Yes.
as well. So not just getting divorced, but before divorce, you were thinking, man, we don't have a relationship,
Right.
or we would stay together, which I think is very common. You know, especially again, we come from a Caribbean culture, Caribbean background, and when I think about it,
And Christian, because that's another
another reason why,
component,
yeah, that adds into the mix.
Yes.
I agree with you. But when I think about it, it happens more than we think that the husband and wife, the mother and father, don't necessarily have a close, intimate relationship,
Right.
but they stay together for years.
For the kids.
For years
Yes.
on end.
Yes.
But as far as them having a close, personal, intimate relationship, they don't really have that. But they're just together. And I think the word you used earlier is very appropriate. They're just basically roommates with kids, with a family.
Right.
And I think it's sad that instead of someone being brave enough to say, we have a problem, or this isn't healthy, that instead of doing that, they just choose to hurt each other silently and stay together
Right.
for years.
Or someone has said something, the other
Mhm.
person is rigid or selfish or inflexible, and
Right.
you just say, "All right, that's just something I'm gonna have to deal with. This I'm
I'ma just
doomed to
live with
deal
it."
with this person who's unwilling to work."
Mercy. Because in our case, and I don't think I've ever told you this, but in our case, Gabby came up to me and said, I scheduled us for counseling. She didn't ask me anything. There was no conversation before. She just walked up to me one day and was like, I scheduled us for counseling. I think you said something like, will you be available such and such a day? And I was like, sure. And that was it. That was it. But what I never told you before, though, was I was going to do the same thing.
Really?
Yeah,
You
I was
were-
going to do the same thing.
What?
I was going to find a therapist whenever I had the time,
Right.
mercy God. But no, it was definitely on the top of my to-do list. I was like, Lord, because like I said before, my mindset was a little bit different from Gabby's. I wasn't thinking that we were going to get divorced. I was thinking that, man, our marriage is in a really, really bad place,
Mhm.
and I don't like that. It's not healthy.
Right.
And that alone was enough for me. Like, I knew something was wrong. I wasn't denying the fact that something was wrong.
Right.
You know, like I said before, giving each other silent treatment or the passive aggressive treatment and passing. Yeah, we would say hi. Yeah, we would. No, seriously.
Yeah. How are the kids?
Yeah, we would say, you know, do you want something to eat?
Mm-hmm.
So don't get it twisted. It's like a cover. It's definitely like a cover. You can be, like you said it before, taking care of the kids, going to work, be functioning.
Totally doable.
Right.
That's the thing.
Yeah, and especially, and if you have personalities like ours, because I prefer to be quiet, which I've talked about before.
Anyway.
Talking is not my thing,
Mm-hmm.
as far as if it's not something with a point to it. Like, what's the goal here? If it's not any of that, I really don't like talking. But I also am an introvert. And then with Gabby, she is more like, how can I put it? Because you're not quiet
A wonderful wife.
all the time. But she can also be passive aggressive. I'll just say it that way. She can be an introvert. You know, if you get her in the wrong mood, you know what I'm saying? So, no, seriously. So for us, it's like imagine two people who don't necessarily need to talk.
While you were talking earlier, I was like, I forgot to mention when we were talking with the therapist, and I said, "Oh, in my mind that we were doomed." I was like, "Okay, I can handle that journey towards just being partners or just being roommates." I was like, "All right, I can handle that. That's not a huge feat for me to overcome. Let's do it." And like you said, to your
And
point,
that's what people.
that it's doable. Functional plus or minus.
Yep.
I mean, you can get things done, but
Yeah.
again,
And that's why for me, even though I'm an introvert, yes, I can handle not talking to you. The fact that I know I love my wife, and the fact that I know, seriously, the fact that to me it just wasn't right. So even though you did it before me, I definitely was gonna be like, well, we need therapy, we need some help. So what was I gonna say? Yeah, so that whole thing with people being functioning, that's what you were saying. All right, so it is doable. So don't trick yourself. Don't put you and your spouse in that trap of, oh, because everything else is taken care of, then we're good. No, that is a lie. That's a lie. Don't live that lie. Just because the bills are paid, just because the kids are taken care of, just because you're working a job and you know you like your job and everything else is fine, just because you go to church together, just because you ask each other if you're hungry and you go take it seriously.
yeah.
Hey, do you need this? I'm going out to the store. You can say all those things, but that doesn't mean you have a close, personal, healthy relationship with your wife or with your husband. So that's what I got from that. And I wasn't here for that. Just wasn't here for it. Because to me,
for fighting.
because the other thing is, think about it. One of the things, you know, we say to ourselves, it's funny, we said it afterwards. We said to ourselves, isn't it funny how when you get mad at your spouse for one thing, say they do one thing that day, or something triggers you, right? We have a triggers episode. Man, y'all need to watch that. Seriously. So, say your wife or your husband, your spouse triggers you, right? They do one thing, and in your mind, because you're not in a good place with communication, because you're not in a good place intimately and mentally and, you know, emotionally with your spouse, you start thinking about all the bad things they've ever done. You start thinking about all the things they do that annoy you. That's not a good place to be.
The spouse can literally become one lump of annoyance. That's all you are.
Mercy, God.
Listen, I've seen it. Might have done it to a minor scale, but just I just view you as one lump of annoyance, and that's all I saw. Resentment builds.
Yep.
Because you feel like they're not seeing or valuing or hearing you. They're probably thinking the same thing.
Yep.
Ships in the night passing each other.
Right.
When you can just stop and just lay it all out, or with a therapist to help facilitate that conversation.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to say, so like I mentioned before, I realized with us, it wasn't something that happened. This is not something that happens, you know, all at once. It didn't just happen just like that.
Right.
What happened was, like I said before, we had Shiloh, and I realized Shiloh now is 4. At the time when we were having the issue, she was 3. But think about for 3 years of building.
Right. Or
Like,
slow separation.
Yeah, slow. It was a slow thing. It wasn't like, oh, we had Shiloh, instant problems. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we had our first child, and there were little things that kept happening along the way. Either they weren't being addressed, or they were being ill addressed. They weren't being addressed properly.
Right.
And because they, over the years, now she's 3. This is 3 years of, stuff that we haven't worked out properly.
Right.
That builds up.
Plus, med school, and then residency. Like,
Mm-hmm.
studying
Responsibilities.
Studying is one thing, right? Studying all over the place. But residency and working and actually being a part.
Yeah. It was rough. It was rough.
If you're in residency or if you're in med
Residency.
school or you're thinking about going to med school or thinking about getting married, you can do it.
It's doable.
Please know,
Mm-hmm.
as much as hard, and this is something that I should have done. As hard as I worked to be there for the patients, to do well in med school, to get those grades, and to do well in residency and appease my attendings, is as much as effort I should have put into you. Too. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, you're forgiven, boo. A long time ago. And
Appreciate it.
And I appreciate you for saying that. Yeah, so there was something else with the whole building up, having kids. Man, it slipped my mind. Going back to the whole functioning thing.
Mm.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. So now imagine we addressed it because, my wife saw it was an issue. I saw it was an issue. God put it in both our heads that we need therapy. And that's why there was no pushback. She'll tell you. She said it, and I was just like, okay.
Yep.
So now imagine, I want to go back to our culture, our people, and Christians, like you said. Now imagine from the time that a child is born until they leave the house, say 18. For some people, the children stay there longer. It could be 21. It could be 25, whatever. Now imagine from, the time the child was born to 18, that's 18 years of those little drifts that we talk about. Those little wedges getting in between, the little cuts, like you said, slowly drifting apart. And like you said, maybe somebody noticed it and didn't say anything, or somebody noticed it and said something, and the opposing spouse dismissed it.
Right.
So now imagine that happening for 18 years, and people do this. They stay in the marriage, they don't address the communication issue or the things that they disagree on, and they live as roommates. And I'm thinking to myself, if you're going to commit to someone and you're going to stay there and do that, why not fix it?
All those years.
I
And
mean,
energy
you could have
being
been,
mad.
yeah, all that energy, right? The same energy you're using to be mad at your spouse, the same energy you're using just to get by or to live as roommates or to be
building up walls.
right. You're putting walls in this energy. You're being passive aggressive. You're giving each other the silent treatment. No one is being intimate like they used to before.
Not that I did this, but cussing each other out in your heads.
I'm not messing with you. So, all the years you spent doing that, now imagine if you had all those years where you guys worked on it together. How much happier you would be, how much lighter your household would be, because I felt like a weight was lifted. Like to the point where I was just like, is this the same house? Seriously, like it felt that good. And I'm like, there's no way I would, even though I could have done it. Like you said,
Yeah.
I could have probably been one of those people that say,
Not comfortable.
yeah, because you get to a certain level of comfort and you feel and it becomes normal. That level, even though it's unhealthy, you're like, oh, this feels normal. And after a while, it doesn't bother you as much. But then
Right.
you do that for years, right? So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I could have done that, but especially knowing what I know now, I would never choose that. It's a choice to
High
choose.
five.
That's what I'm talking about. It's a choice to really choose to stay in that type of relationship with your spouse and not trying to fix it. But it's also a choice that you can do better. All right. So I think we can end with that. I implore you, please choose to talk about it.
Choose life.
Yes.
Choose peace. Choose joy.
happiness, joy. Do it not just for you, Do it for your kids. Do it for the whole unit of your family. Do it for the culture of your family. Because now you don't want your children, like your experience, like you said, you don't want your children to grow up and when they have these similar issues or the same exact issues in their relationships, they're going to do what was modeled to them. That's what they saw. That's all they know. They don't mean to do it even though it's wrong.
Right.
Don't continue the generational curse.
Right. So create your own culture. I think very big reason why we talk about KNG culture is because we are literally trying to break away from bad habits, generational curses, things we were used to, and trying to create something new and healthy and safe for each other and for the family. So you don't have to stay the same way as far as bad habits, but you can create a whole new value system.
Yes.
This is brand new. But you have to work.
Yep.
It's hard and it's not easy, but it's worth it.
It's definitely worth it. I wouldn't do it with anybody else.
Because I'm worth it.
All right, man. So we hope this was helpful. Culture family. I'm K.A. Will. We'll see you next time.
Bye.